So I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker this morning. He's established himself as an entrepreneur, a speaker, an author, and a leading voice for his generation in business and technology. He's the founder, the chairman, and the CEO of his fifth venture, BCT Partners. Most notably, he was the first and only African American to receive the prestigious Rhodes Scholarship at Rutgers, and was the winner of NBC's hit reality television show, The Apprentice, with Donald Trump. So, please welcome entrepreneur, author, and community servant, Dr. Randal Pinkett.
Good morning. Come on, Philadelphia, you can do better than that. Good morning. All right, well, look, it's an honor and a privilege to be here. Let me begin by thanking John Kirky for the very gracious, very humbling, and very flattering introduction. Please give John a round of applause for his organization's support of EMSDC. I got a couple of folks I need to shout out. I want to give a shout out to Valerie Cofield, our fearless leader of EMSDC. I am a Philadelphia native and a New Jersey resident, so I am intimately familiar with this council, have been involved in many activities, and I am honored and privileged and excited to be the keynote, but to see you in this new leadership role with EMSDC and the whole relaunch of this effort to support businesses. So please give Valerie another round of applause for her leadership. No, thank you. Thank you. To my frat brother, Vaughn, Exelon, leader in supplier diversity, leader in the industry, and just a dear friend, and I couldn't have said it better than Valerie said it. His mentorship, his leadership, he says what he means what he says, and backs it up at the same time. It's a bad brother right there. Give him a round of applause. I got a couple of colleagues in the audience as well from BCT, my colleague Janelle Moody, our Vice President of Marketing and Sales, and David Poindexter, another frat brother, who is leading our public relations and community relations efforts. Please give Janelle and David a round of applause. And thank you both for coming out this morning. Thank you very much. It's enough with the shout outs. Let's get into the remarks. So I've been a minority business owner for more than 2 decades. I started my first company when I was in college. I've got 3 partners. We've launched 5 ventures. So I'm not just here to be in the midst of MBEs and MWBs. I am an MBE. I've been in this game for a long time. And across my varied experiences, from Rutgers to Oxford, to being a Rhodes Scholar, to studying at MIT, to winning The Apprentice, that's a whole nother speech. You can imagine that speech. I'll say this, what's been most valuable across my experiences has not been the things that I've done, but rather the ways that I think. And I don't take credit for how I think. It's been cultivated in me over years through my parents, through my mentors, through teachers, other supporters, but there are a particular set of ways that I do think that have been instilled in me. And so I want to speak to you to the following theme: the innovator's mindset. The innovator's mindset. Now, before I talk about the mindset of an innovator, let me set the stage for 2 trends that give rise to the need for the mindset. The first trend, or rather the 2 trends, are technology and the economy. Technology and the economy. The first trend is one that this audience is no stranger to. Technology and economy are 2 trends that have transformed every industry that is represented in this room today. If I take the first, the economy, we all know we're living in very challenging economic times. We've been in the midst of that since 2008. And while there are lots of names for it, layoffs, workforce reductions, restructurings, reorganizations, downsizing, my favorite, right-sizing, Mergers, acquisitions, integrations, consolidations, we've seen it all over the past few years. And suffice it to say that the marketplace is not as plentiful as it was back in 2008. We can all agree to that. The implications of that are that with increasing frequency, we are all being asked to do more with less. Those who can figure out how to do more with less will be competitive in the 21st century. Those who cannot will not. And you can either accept this or you can move to the 51st state of the Union, the state of denial. The second trend, technology. From CDs to DVDs to MP3s to PSPs to HD TVs, from iPads to iPhones to iTunes to iPods. Sometimes I wish that I had some iTime for iPeace and iQuiet to get some iSleep. Somebody said, I know that's right. Thank you. I heard that. But technology has revolutionized industry. When I graduated from Rutgers, I took a job working for AT&T. My first job, I was designing cell phones for AT&T. And at the time, this is the mid-90s, we ran these ads that were meant to be futuristic. We would say things like, have you ever sent a fax from the beach? Have you ever paid a toll without stopping? Have you ever read a book from 1,000 miles away? And then we would fade to black and say, well, you will, and the company that will bring it to you is AT&T. Well, think about it. We have all of that today. You can read a book on the internet from 1,000 miles away. You can send a fax from the beach from your phone. You can go down almost every toll road without stopping. In fact, the only thing that didn't come true is that AT&T didn't bring any of it to you. With all of that futuristic thinking, that was the one thing we missed, was that it wasn't us that brought it to you. But the implications of technology is that it has accelerated the change of pace in industry, what I call a hyper-accelerated rate of change. Those who can keep pace with this hyper-accelerated industry environment that we live in will be competitive in the 21st century. Those who cannot will not. And so the sum total of these trends that we've been witnessing, that these are not temporary shifts, but fundamental changes in how the industries function, which says to me, I've got news for you, Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. We are in the midst of a new era with new challenges. It gives rise to new opportunities, which also leads to the need for new mindsets, new ways of thinking. In fact, more specifically, to do more with less in a challenged economy and to counteract hyper-accelerated change fueled by technology, diverse suppliers and supplier diversity leaders must embrace the innovator's mindset. The way of thinking of an innovator. Now, what's innovation? Innovation, defined very simply, is the introduction of something new, a new process, a new way of doing things, a new technology, a new idea. That is, stated simply, innovation. What is the innovator's mindset? The innovator's mindset says you must have a healthy acceptance of failure as the only pathway to innovation. Failure and innovation must coexist. They go hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other. Innovation is predicated on failure, and in fact, here are three tenets of failure, three principles of failure. First, failure says nothing about you. It's not personal. We all fail. It says nothing negative about you to say that you failed. Second, you learn more from failure than you do from success. Think about how children learn, by making mistakes, learning from the mistakes, even though we try to prevent them from making the mistakes. Third principle, third tenet of failure, and I believe this is a quote, I think Winston Churchill, that success is nothing more than going from failure to failure with undiminished enthusiasm. Which says the following, that the connecting dot between failure and innovation is perseverance. That if you're willing to try it over and 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 over again, you'll innovate. But the question is, how many of us are willing to step into that space? Question, by a show of hands, how many of you have heard of WD-40? By a show of hands, WD-40. Who knows the story of WD-40? Can I get one hand? I got a hand here. I've got one hand. 2.5. WD-40, the lubricant, you know, the blue and yellow can. It's very well-recognized product. The story of WD-40, founded in San Diego in 1953, a staff of 3 people who set out to create a line of rust prevention solvents and degreasers for the aerospace industry. And the way that you prevent rust is by displacing water. The water leads to rust, displace the water, less rust. It took them 40 attempts to get the signature formula right. WD-40 stands for water displacement perfected on the 40th try. Somebody clap for that, okay? I'm just getting warm. Who knows Formula 409? Show of hands. Formula 409. Work with me here, folks. Work with me. Who knows the story of Formula 409? I got 0 hands. 0. Formula 409, and this is true. I got it from Wikipedia. And I got it from their website, too. It is true. Formula 409 got its story from persistence. 2 young scientists in Detroit wanted to create the ultimate cleaner, the ultimate cleansing agent. Only when they created the 409th formula did they finally get it right. Formula 409 stands for the formula perfected on the 409th try. I'd have given up on the 10th try. Or maybe the 200th try, I'd have given up. Or maybe on the 408th try, I would have thrown in the towel. What's the overarching lesson? Do not let a setback hold you back, because a setback is a setup for a comeback. There's no pain, there's no gain. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. If there's no risk, there's no reward. If there's no test, there is no testimony. If there is no trouble, there is no triumph. If there are no problems, there is no power. No disappointment, no discipline, which means sometimes you have to go through in order to grow through, which means there's nothing ventured, there's nothing gained. If you don't believe, then don't bother, so go hard or go home, because failure is not falling down, failure is staying down. I'll wake y'all up. So how do you make the innovator's mindset practical? Especially for diverse suppliers and supplier diversity leaders gathered here for EMSDC's annual event. I would argue to my fellow MBEs, MWBEs, I would argue to my fellow supplier diversity advocates, supporters, managers, executives, and the like, 2 things have to change. First, we have to change the culture of supplier diversity, which is largely a culture, and if you've been in this game long enough, you'll follow me here, of differential consequences for the same failures. Differential consequences for the same failures. Let me say it plainly. The culture of supplier diversity is such that if one diverse supplier fails, we are all perceived to fail. If one diverse supplier delivers late, we are all perceived to deliver late. If one diverse supplier delivers value, they're the exception. That's real talk. Let me play it even plainer. And Emmett and I were just having this conversation. I'll say it succinctly using the old adage, nobody gets fired for hiring IBM. We just talked about that. Nobody gets fired for hiring IBM. They do get fired for hiring BCT. So the culture of supplier diversity must change. And guess what? The culture of our organizations must also change. That is, particularly large organizations. I'm talking about Fortune 500s. I'm talking about large nonprofits like healthcare systems. I'm talking about universities and colleges, many other organizations that are sponsors of this organization. Culture must change within these organizations. What do I mean? That the culture of large organizations is naturally a culture that is risk averse. And there's a very good reason for that. You don't build a large enterprise by being willy-nilly with risk. Corporations, large organizations are predicated on managing risk. Anyone working at a corporation knows exactly what I'm talking about. But it is that risk-averse culture that can lead to less risky choices and makes it harder for new suppliers to disrupt the marketplace and certainly harder for new diverse suppliers to disrupt the marketplace. If we want to achieve innovation, and everyone here, I'm sure, wants to achieve innovation, the culture of supplier diversity must change, the culture of our organizations must change, and the language must change from risk aversion and differential consequences for the same failures to one, and hopefully you saw this coming, that maintains a healthy acceptance of supplier diversity failure as the only path to success. Tweet that. If you didn't know, hold on a second. Let me go off on a tangent here. Hashtag Roar Conference. Handle at EMSDC. Handle at Randal Pinkett with one L. Pinkett like Jada Pinkett. Tweet that. If you want to achieve innovation, failure is unavoidable. If we want to achieve diverse supplier innovation, failure is unavoidable. Now, of course, this is easier said than done. Let's talk a bit about how we do it through the lens of the innovator's mindset. I'm going to practice what I preach right here, right now. Now, I'm wearing a three-piece suit. You might think I'm a preacher. I want to highlight stories of supplier diversity failure. I want to highlight stories of supplier diversity failure, and I want to celebrate those stories right here, right now. There are three ways to foster diverse supplier innovation. I call them the 3 Bs. Diverse suppliers can build capabilities, they can buy capabilities, or they can borrow capabilities. Build, borrow, and buy. 3 ways to grow your enterprise. It's that simple. Let's take them one at a time and look at the example of failure of a diverse firm that tried to build it, buy it, and borrow it, and failed, working with a large organization. First, building capabilities. It's a large healthcare organization called Vizient. Prior to Vizient being formed through a mega merger of several other healthcare organizations, one of the members of Vizient that led to the merger was a company called VHA, a national healthcare network providing supply chain management to 1,400 hospitals, both large and small. In 2008, VHA worked with Novation, its then supply contracting company, and Spectrum Health, one of its member hospitals, to deepen their support of supplier diversity by helping build the innovative capabilities of an MBE. This was led by a friend of mine named Lamont Robinson, then Business and Product Development Manager at Novation. I've interviewed the people involved with this deal. One of the people involved, a man named Christopher Baskell, who was then head of supply chain management at the hospital Spectrum Health. Here's a quote from Christopher. Traditionally, we've been able to identify a sufficient number of MBEs for service requirements. Nevertheless, it's almost unheard of to find minority suppliers in the manufacturing space who are producing finished clinical products, which is where the bulk of healthcare spend lies. To address this issue, Spectrum Health established a mentoring relationship with an MBE called WJG Enterprise Molding Company. Spectrum, VHA, mentored WJG, taking their business from manufacturing automotive products to manufacturing clinical finished goods. Mentored them from manufacturing automotive products to finished clinical goods. Building new capabilities. That is risky. That is an innovator's mindset. On this experience, Donna Clutter, then BD manager at VHA, says the following: "We were in uncharted territory. We mentored WJG on everything from the importance of trials to testing new products to establishing relationships with distributors to educating their people internally. As a result of their efforts, VHA, Novation, and Spectrum strengthened their supplier base, introduced a new diverse supplier to their supply chain. WJG grew as a result of a new product line in healthcare. It sounds great, doesn't it? Sounds great. So what happened? It failed. It failed. WJG tried to expand their products to other healthcare networks, but could not fulfill the orders. They couldn't keep up. WJG is no longer in business. They're gone. And while there are several lessons to learn that are specific to this example, such as managing growth, we talked about that, Alicia, focusing mentoring efforts on expansion into directly adjacent industries, there's a broader lesson as it relates to the innovator's mindset. Clearly, VHA, Novation, Spectrum, WJG had a culture that was accepting and encouraging of taking risks. Nobody got fired. All the people I've mentioned went on to have illustrious careers both at the organization and beyond the organization. In fact, the lesson learned is that people do not fear failure, people fear the consequences of failure. If you remove the consequences, give them the opportunity to make a mistake, to fail miserably, to fall on their face, and not have negative consequences assigned, you unleash their creative potential. You unleash their imaginative potential. You unleash their innovative potential. Give WJG, VHA, and Novation a round of applause for failing. Second way to build diverse capabilities is to buy the capabilities. First is build it, WJG. Second is to buy it. Here's my example. It's a great story of failure. This is a great one. So get this, and some of you might know this story. It's local. Merck and PRWT services. Somebody in here knows PRWT. Most of y'all know Merck. PRWT services, minority business ownership, minority business enterprise, headquartered here in Philadelphia. 2008, Merck brokered a deal with PRWT for PRWT to buy one of Merck's drug manufacturing plants. I see your head shaking. In an attempt to significantly move the needle on supplier diversity. You already are manufacturing the drug in the plant. Sell the plant to an MBE, have the MBE sell the drug back to your company, you now get diverse spend. You follow me, right? Sounds great, doesn't it? It gets better. Here's some facts in the deal. Merck had been operating the plant for 58 years. It was a well-oiled, mature, churning out drugs operation. Already well-oiled. Second fact, PRWT was already generating $80 million in revenue. This deal doubled the company to $160 million. So the lesson here is PRWT was not unaccustomed to operating at scale. They were at 80 million. This deal took them to 160 million. Third fact, get this. Merck guaranteed the purchase of $900 million in product over 5 years. Guaranteed business, $900 million. Sounds great, doesn't it? What happened? Talk to me, somebody. It failed, thank you. It failed! Here's the debrief. So, 2.5 years after the deal was done, PRWT begged Merck to buy the plant back from them. And while there are several lessons to be learned that are specific to this example, such as PRWT's lack of private sector experience, PRWT having sole unrelated experience only with government agencies, which led to an inability to expand the plant's customer base beyond Merck, there's a broader lesson that should not be lost if you think about this through the lens of the innovator's mindset. And that is, if you're going to fail, fail fast and pivot fast. There is no badge of honor for failing long. No badge of honor for taking a long time to fail. No extra credit if you take a very long time to fail. What you want, what I want, what we want is to pursue these kinds of efforts with a spirit of entrepreneurship, of experimentation, of exploration, of trial and error, of iteration, of prototyping, of beta versions, of minimally viable products or MVPs, and when it's not working, to not scrap all of the work and effort we put in, but rather pivot to a new direction that is more informed than the last one. Why is this important? Because when you fail fast, and pivot fast, the faster you fail, the faster you pivot, the faster you get to the innovation. That's why it's important. Somebody said, that's right. PRWT could have continued for several years trying to make an unprofitable manufacturing plant work. Many of us might have tried for several years to try to make this $80 million deal work. But they had the ability to see quickly and to pivot quickly that this was a bad deal. And they said, you know what, Merck? Please, please take this plant back so we can get back to being 80 million and not 160 million and losing our shirts. It could have taken their entire company down, but the good news is PRWT is still around, to fight the good fight. Give PRWT and Merck a round of applause for failing. Third, borrowing innovative capabilities. The first way is to build it, second way to buy it, third way to borrow it. Make this one personal. In 1997, as part of our first venture, my business partners and I, we attempted a merger with another MBE. And what happened? It failed. 2003, as part of our second venture, we attempted a merger with two MBEs. What happened? It failed, thank you. 2008, as part of our fifth venture, we attempted a joint venture with a medium-sized firm, and what happened? It failed. 2001, we attempted 3 consecutive mergers with the same MBE. 3 times, 3 valuations, 3 sets of legal fees. What happened? It failed. 2012, yet again, we attempted a joint venture with another MBE. We tried it again. Attempt number 7. That's risky. That's the innovator's mindset. But what happened? It succeeded. We did the deal. We formed a federal 8A joint venture, having graduated from the 8A program. And through that joint venture, we've done close to $20 million in federal contracts. Had we been once bitten and twice shy from the first failure, or the second failure, or the third failure, or the fourth, or the fifth, or the sixth failure, we'd have never seen the realization of the 20 million. Give my company, BCT, a round of applause. I said it, for failing. I said it. I said it. And while there are several lessons that can be learned that are specific to this example, such as us biting off more than we could chew early on, we weren't ready for JVs, mergers, and acquisitions, there's another broader lesson as you look at it through the innovator's mindset, and that is taking the time to reflect on mistakes and apply and have the discipline to apply the lessons learned from those mistakes. At our firm, BCT, now, every month, company-wide, we call Knowledge Review. Knowledge Review is an opportunity to present a failed project, a failed effort, a unsuccessful initiative that we can distribute the lessons learned throughout the entire organization. That it's not confined to the person who made the mistake. Leads me to a quote. A quote from the great theologian and prophet, Beyonce, who said, "I embrace mistakes. They make you who you are." A second great quote, Thomas Edison. "Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up." Let me close this out. Let's get back on schedule, or close to schedule. Talked about the 3 B's: build, buy, borrow. Gave you examples of failure: PRWT, WJG, BCT partners. And I talked about the innovator's mindset and how to make that practical by removing the consequences of failure, failing fast and pivoting fast, and taking the time to learn and apply the lessons learned from failure. My closing point I will convey through a final story, which is not just a failed example, but a miserably failed example. But it perfectly conveys my final point. 2005, Intuit. You know Intuit, they make TurboTax. Wanted to target a young demographic by linking tax filing with hip-hop. Through a website called rockyourrefund.com. I'm not making this up. Intuit offered young people discounts to Expedia, the travel website, discounts to Best Buy, electronics, and the ability to deposit tax refunds into a prepaid Visa card offered by hip-hop mogul Russell Simmons called the Rush Card, a minority entrepreneur. Sounds great, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Sounds innovative, doesn't it? Actually, no, it doesn't. So what happened? It failed. It was a miserable and complete failure. Hip-hop stars can't make IRS Form 1040 cool enough for Generation Y to get excited about taxes. The marketing effort attracted very few new customers. Intuit killed the program. But the better question is, to close this out, how did Intuit handle the failure? Get this. According to Business Week magazine, this is a quote from an article on the failure. The team that developed the RockYourRefund.com campaign documented its insights, such as the fact that millennials don't visit destination websites that feel too much like advertising. Then on a stage in front of some 200 Intuit employees, the team received an award. The team received an award from Intuit chairman Scott Cook, who said the following: "It's only a failure if we fail to get the learning." The team received an award for their failure. The fourth and final lesson speaks for itself. Celebrate and acknowledge failure. Now that is some culture-changing, game-changing, innovative, off-the-chart stuff right there, folks. Stated more colloquially, after a failure, don't hate. Celebrate, rejuvenate, motivate, commemorate. I don't know, roller skate, but think about all the lessons learned everyone can generate. Are you with me? All right. Well, I gotta get off the stage. Here we go. If I could sum all this up into one word, that word is commitment. This is ultimately about a personal and organizational commitment to a healthy acceptance of supplier diversity failure as the only path to innovation. It's a paradigmatic shift in culture and in language that moves from instilling this innovator's mindset not someday, but Monday. Close on a quote. To win without risk is to triumph without glory. To win without risk is to triumph without glory. So let us all recommit this morning at this EMSDC milestone event to the innovator's mindset, and not only winning with risk, but triumphing with glory, both in success and, more importantly, in failure. God bless you, and thank you for having me here at EMSDC.